Has OKC done enough to improve? How will Chris Paul fit in Houston? What does every other free agent move mean to the NBA? The only question left is, say it with me, you win? Hey sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to the B-Ball Breakdown podcast. And we're also simulcasting this on YouTube. So as always, we are joined by Coach Dave Dufour on a Sunday with a lot of things to talk about on this July 4th weekend. I hope you guys are all having a nice time with your families and relaxing out there. I know it hasn't been so easy for me. I don't know about you, Dave, but certainly it's been a lot of crap to have to go through and look at. So how is it going with you so far?
No, it's been a great weekend. Obviously NBA free agency has been, pretty extreme. Although, I mean, maybe not extreme is the word. Friday night was pretty extreme, but it's been mild since then. Just relaxing, man. Trying to take advantage of this long weekend before I head to Vegas for Summer League.
Yep, that sounds about right with me as well. So fresh off of seeing Baby Driver, and now I'm ready to get in the driver's seat and do this podcast with you. So I suppose the place we should start is the most surprising move of them all so far, I think, would be the Paul George trade to OKC, which was a shocker. I mean, I think that, a couple people had mentioned something about it like in the week before, but not a lot of press on that one. So what is your initial impression of this trade?
Well, you and I talked a little bit about it. We thought it would be a worthwhile risk for Oklahoma City based on, trying to keep Russ around, right? Like he has an extension out on the table, I'm assuming, that he needs to sign. And if he doesn't sign, then there's a good chance they move him. Well, if you're OKC, you want to do everything you can to keep him there. And if bringing Paul George in, even if it's just a rental, that's a swing worth taking. But the other side of this move is that they got off of that Oladipo contract that they signed, him to an extension to last summer, 4 years, $21 million, and they were capped out before this trade. And now let's say they have to trade Russ, and they probably would then trade Paul George. They go into next summer with quite a bit of cap space. So Presti really did a fantastic job on this trade.
Okay, that's interesting. Oh, yeah, and then for sure, as far as the Presti side, yes, it's a no-brainer either way. They didn't give him, somehow Indiana came away with a deal that did not get them a draft pick at all. So you're right, we did talk about this a little bit before, but certainly, it's a very strange trade. They could have made that trade next week if they wanted to, and waited to see what the Gordon Hayward situation was going to play out to be, whether and how that might work with Paul George. And so just very head-scratching to say the least. But let's look at it as far as how it works on the court, because I don't know if we've done a lot of analysis on that end. I've been digging into the footage a lot this morning to do a video on this, and so what I've noticed is, and here's the thing about Paul George I started tweeting about earlier today that I thought was fascinating, is that he is a very rare bird where his most common action that he uses is off screen. And I couldn't find anybody in the top 15 or 20 top scorers who have that as their number one option, and he does it like 17.5% of the time. I don't think any of those guys do it more than 8 or 9. I think maybe Steph was like 10 something. I can't remember now, in that range, or 11. But it's certainly not as high as 15, 16, where he was at 17. So that was kind of fascinating to me, and I think I kind of missed that looking over Paul George the last year or two and how he scored.
Yeah, he should be great off the ball next to Russ. And then the other benefit is, if they stagger their minutes, you've got a guy who, when Russ is on the bench, hopefully can keep the team going at a pretty high clip. I mean, I love this for Oklahoma City. I still think, it's going to be interesting what they do with Robertson if they're going to bring him back. And I think they probably will. And he's probably regretting not signing that 4-year, $48 million extension last summer. But they have an interesting team. I'm not sure yet who's going to start for them. The Rudy Gay rumors are interesting, but, is he a starter there? Like, how's he going to look coming off the Achilles injury and whatnot? But at least 3 of those guys is Russ, Paul George, and Steven Adams, and that's actually a pretty good place to start.
I was looking at that too. We were talking this on DM as far as like what that starting lineup looks like. Okay, now Rudy Gay is almost a necessity if they have any hope of keeping Russell Westbrook, because obviously if they're going to try and go to war in the West with Paul George, Russell Westbrook, and you're talking about having like maybe re-sign Robertson, Adams, and like Jeremy Grant, Doug McDermott. Like, I don't even know who that 5th starter is going to be.
Maybe Ferguson is what some people were saying. I can't imagine starting a rookie a quote unquote 3-and-D rookie who isn't really good at threes or D. So I don't know if they're going to do that or not. I think you need some D League done.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's certainly not going to be a recipe for success, because I had people yelling at me like, I thought maybe fifth or sixth they could be, in the West at best, and people are thinking that I was hating on them or whatever. I'm like, there's no way with this team right now. I don't think there'd be any way they'd be higher than fifth or tops, maybe sixth because of that. Although then you start looking at it and like what the list is, and obviously the Warriors, Spurs, and Rockets. That's the three. And then like, okay, well then who is the fourth and the fifth then? If let's say they're going to be sixth, though, I don't know who's above them at this point then.
I don't know. A lot of people are jumping on the Minnesota bandwagon right now. I still need to see it. Teague is great. He can play off ball, but this is a team that was horrible on defense last year. Butler and Taj Gibson, you would think, are gonna help that quite a bit, but they still have Karl Anthony Towns, and they still have Andrew Wiggins and Teague, who are, sub-optimal defenders. So, we'll see how that goes. I'm not completely sold on them yet. I think that they're not finished making moves. Denver is really interesting to me. If they somehow wind up with George Hill and Paul Millsap, which apparently is in play, that could be incredible. There's also they've been talking to Phoenix about taking on Eric Bledsoe. He could also be great there, especially if they get Millsap. I really think that Denver is a team to watch. A lot of people are really high on Portland. I'm not as high. I think the second half of that season was a little fluky just because of the schedule and whatnot. They were markedly better. I don't think they were as bad. I don't think they're as bad as they were in the beginning of the season, but I don't think that they're as good as they were in the second half of the season. Does that make sense?
Yes. Portland definitely had a fall off there and didn't look nearly as good, so I think that would certainly be an issue. I'm not sold on Portland. They haven't done anything except for get that 10th pick. They need to do something more, don't they?
Probably. I mean, but good luck. I mean, their salary cap situation is so bad that there just isn't much that they can do.
Right, I agree. Right, there's not a lot. It's not even the salary cap as much. I mean, it is that as well, but like their assets aren't sort of as
right.
Sexy
they have no
as
value.
Other people's.
Yeah, they have no value, and so it's really tricky for them to do much of anything. And you don't want to give up. Like if you have to attach something valuable to them, like if they have to attach a Minu to get rid of Evan Turner, I don't think they're getting someone back that could be as valuable to them as a Minu is. So.
All right, I don't even want to give Chief that much credit anyway.
Okay, but think about it. I'm saying to this team and how valuable he is to this team. I'm not saying he's as valuable elsewhere, but he's a big part of success that they have. But if you think about it going forward, they basically have three guys that they're building around, and that's CJ, Dame, and Nurkic, and then everyone else should basically be expendable, including Allen Crabbe, who I actually think, look, the Allen Crabbe contract has been much maligned, but in the NBA, wings are gonna look overpaid. He plays good defense and he shoots threes. That is valuable. It's worth about $18 million a year for a starter. The question is he a starter? And that's what they need to find out this year. He looked good at the end of last year.
Yeah, I believe, and I agree. And also, I think it's the Evan Turner. I think the Evan Turner effect just put a cloud on it, and he did his best to try and sort of fit in a little bit more, but it was you could tell that there was something different from what they had, the potential they might have had, with that team and as it was building, and there's something changed fundamentally with it. And I don't know if anyone, they're all really nice guys. They're probably not going to say anything publicly, but I have to imagine that it's just not the magic. Something was disappeared when they brought him in there. It just doesn't fit what they want to do. So. But and again, he doesn't have any value. I don't think that they can get much at all for him. But and what's he getting paid? He's probably getting paid way too much, I imagine, as well.
Evan Turner's making 18, and I mean, or something around there. And yeah, that's way too much. He's not fitting the role that they brought him in to do. So I think they're obviously looking to move him, but they're going to have to attach some sort of something to get him moved. But So back to the other moves that have happened. We talked about Paul George a little bit. Chris Paul to the Rockets. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
Well, I did a video and it was a little bit trying to be positive about like how this could work, and I kind of just kept it narrow at the beginning just to sort of look at how they spot up, which would indicate how they could play off the ball. And I even referenced him playing alongside Darren Collison, which again is not any reflection of like what Harden would be like, but it gives you a nice sense of 2 point guards out there at the same time, and that really worked for the Clippers. I felt like for that 1 year that he was there. I feel like there are paths where this could work really well. I still feel like in the first 2 months we're gonna have a lot of possessions where someone's angry and yelling. And it could very well be CP3. He's the guy who seems to get into people's faces. So I think that's going to be an issue until they figure it out. Not that they won't figure it out. Does it make him better? I think you could argue that they're better. They're better, from a talent standpoint. I mean, you replace CP3 or Patrick Beverley with CP3. The defense is kind of close to being there, and I think the offense obviously is better, but so radically different that I don't know. I don't know if I can get a handle on how well this is going to work and whether they're going to compete. What do you think?
I'm high on it. I like the idea. Both of these guys are actually excellent off the basketball. Harden shot 38.8% on catch and shoot threes. Chris Paul shot 46.8. They just don't get many opportunities. Mm-hmm. And I think that playing together, they should both get more opportunities for that. The other thing is, I think we'll see Harden's defense go up. His usage should go down. His scoring should come easier. And so we'll see him have to step it up on the other end. And by have to, I mean because Chris Paul may murder him on the basketball court if he doesn't do it. And so I think that's a plus. I also love the PJ Tucker signing. I think that their small ball lineup has some real potential. Even if they keep Ryan Anderson and playing Ryan Anderson at the 5 with PJ Tucker, Ariza, Harden, and Chris Paul. I mean, that's a lot of scoring on the court. So, yeah, I'm pretty high on the Chris Paul move, and I think good players typically figure these things out. And look, I'm the first one to say that Chris Paul pounds the hell out of the basketball, and that's a problem. But I think that this will be the best player he's ever played with. And I think that makes a difference. I really do. I think they'll make it work. And on paper right now, they're my favorite to be the 2 seed in the West.
Yeah.
Depends on those growing pains, though, right? Like the first 2 months could be rough, in which case maybe they're not 2 seed. Sorry.
And so that's the real question. So the starting lineup's going to be like what we're going to say: Capella, Anderson, Ariza, CP3, and Harden.
That's how it is right now.
Right.
Now, Daryl Morey is never done, right? So
right. Okay. Yeah, and then off the bench, you're going to have Eric Gordon. You're going to have PJ Tucker. Who else am I missing? Because I got rid of Lou. It's a good 7.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's enough.
Gordon.
Oh, they signed Nene.
Right, they re-signed Nene.
Which is
and
good.
Then they'll fill out the bench.
What's that?
Then they'll fill out the bench.
Yeah,
as the
so they
summer
got 8.
goes.
Like that's a solid 8. I mean, that could probably work. And
they still have their biannual exception as well. So they still have some money out there to get some people. And they still have their trade exception that they created in the Chris Paul trade. So
well, we get to find out, by the way, just how popular Chris Paul is, because
that's right.
Obviously, Daryl wanted to create this situation where someone's going to want to go play with these 2 guys, and that's an interesting question.
They also brought over the guy from China, Zhu Qi or whatever.
Joe? Yeah.
Yeah, Joe. That's it. They brought him over. I mean, they signed him to a 4-year deal. Now, I mean, whether he's going to contribute or not, I don't know. But that's another trade piece as well.
Yeah, I remember going to watch him work out like probably 3 years ago when he literally was like $110 and 6, almost 7 feet tall, and seeing it, he's really come a long way. But I still feel like he's probably not quite ready to be a contributor. But we'll see. We'll see. We never know. With the way the game is going, it's a different game now. It's much more wide open. There's a lot more opportunities for guys who can kind of like get in there and fulfill their very specific role without being exposed as much. So we'll see. I don't know. We'll have to. We'll see. But either way, it sounds like Morey is going to probably try and get at least one more player in there, some sort of bona fide NBA player. But again, it's not. It doesn't quite feel like. I mean, the other question is like, is Paul George and Russell Westbrook some sort of a amazing combination that's going to get someone to want to go? I don't know. Which, by the way, I mean, yeah, if we're talking about alchemy and getting people together, then we got to talk about what's going on in Minnesota with Tibbs. I think he's doing his version of the Blues Brothers getting the band back together.
Yeah, he definitely is. I mean, if Derrick Rose goes there on a cheap contract, I don't hate it if he's coming off the bench as a backup. But I don't know if he's going to do that. I mean, I'm saying cheap contract for Derrick Rose. But yeah, I mean, Taj is going to bring some toughness. I mean, they may not be a great team, but they are going to be a bunch of assholes on the basketball court, and that's worth something.
Yeah. Well, you're talking. Well, let's see. Well, who are the assholes? And we got Butler,
Taj Gibson, and then you hope that Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns kind of come along.
Right. And if you had a couple playing, and then I guess I don't know how much Butler and Taj are going to be in the court together, the way that they'll stagger the lineups. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
I don't know about that. Hang on. It is Tibbs. I mean, he's going to play those 5 guys like 40 minutes a night.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So I don't know. I feel like Taj is going to get. Now, the funny thing about Taj, by the way, it kept popping up. I was going through. So I wanted to see how much better they're going to be. OKC is going to be with Paul George getting those spot up opportunities from a Russell Westbrook drive. And when you watch the Russell drives and kicks, I swear to God, I watched the last 200 of their 900 misses, whatever it was. So many of them are Taj Gibson bricks from 15 to 18.
Yeah,
it didn't feel that way as much, I guess, watching it live, but certainly it was over and over again. It was Taj more than anybody. So I hope he can solve that a little bit, because I feel like he's a little bit better as a knockdown shooter from mid range in Chicago.
Well, I don't know, man. I like Taj Gibson is 32. I'm bad, man. I'm so bad at just remembering ages right off.
Oh no. Well, you know what? He is older than we
think. He's 32.
But I don't think he's even 32 yet.
He's 32.
Okay.
He just turned 32. Man, finally got one. But yeah, so I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I mean, Taj Gibson is who he is, and we'll see what sort of opportunities he even gets. I mean, there is only one basketball, and there's a lot of guys on there. I mean, we know Andrew Wiggins is going to want to score. We know Jimmy Butler is going to get his. Karl Anthony Towns is going to have a lot of plays called for him. So it might be that Taj is only getting 5 or 6 shots a game that aren't putbacks. So I'm not too worried about that.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, certainly in that situation, and that's probably his best role. Give him a couple post-ups, maybe a couple pick and pops, and then whatever he can clean up as garbage man is fine. I feel like Gorgui Dieng is going to probably end up being not in the rotation if Taj works out in any stretch of the imagination.
That's an expensive guy to have sitting on the bench doing nothing, and he's making $16 million a year.
Does he have any value?
I don't know. I'm kind of surprised they didn't try to put him in that trade to the Bulls, and maybe they did. But I just think hanging on to him, I don't know, man. I don't know a lot of teams that would be going after him.
Right, and I'm not even going to say $60 million is exorbitant at this point with where the salary cap is, but it's certainly for a guy who might not play in theory that much. Now, people in Minnesota were trying to get at me on Twitter to tell me how much better he's improved as a shooter, and he started to get behind the three-point line. But I just feel like no matter how good of a shooter he's ever going to be, his man will simply never guard him out anywhere beyond the paint. So it won't matter. And so, I don't even know if he'll be good enough to make him pay. No,
and probably not. I mean, again, I don't know. I just think that their cap situation is looking messy at the moment. And I mean, just think about this: if they didn't re-sign Gorgui Dieng, they would have been in on Millsap, and that's a game changer for that team.
Oh yeah, Paul Millsap would have been fantastic for them. I thought that would have been a really great pickup. In fact, Paul Millsap is great for anybody that wants to pick him up. So it's almost a catch-all for everybody. So yeah. Now where are we with Paul Millsap right now? I forgot where we got landed with him.
So Paul Millsap still hasn't signed with anyone. He is, I believe he's met with Denver. I think Denver right now are the favorites to sign him, and I love the fit there in Denver. I think he could be great. He's almost exactly what they need in that 4 spot next to Nikola Jokic. He can help protect the rim. He can switch on a pick and roll. I mean, I just think it'd be great. And if somehow George Hill, who's also rumored to be going to Denver, if George Hill also winds up there, man, those are 2 guys that fill huge holes for them. Good defenders. Hill can play on or off the ball on offense. Millsap can shoot threes, can really defend, and then they're 2 veteran leaders for what is a super young team. I love that for Denver.
Yeah, well then it puts Moutier in the bench where maybe that's where he's supposed to be at this point.
I think Moody is on the way out. I think they're going to put him in a deal and move him.
Again, someone who doesn't have a lot of value either, I'd imagine at this point, a poor shooting point guard who maybe doesn't really run a team very well. I mean, perhaps he's a shooting guard then at this point, which is, by the way, it's interesting because we were talking about sort of the legacy of certain players. I'm going to do a video on this where we look at the guys that grew up in L.A. when Kobe was playing, Paul George, DeMar DeRozan, Russell Westbrook. They're all sort of influenced by Kobe by varying degrees. So I kind of want to do a video on that, based on region. Like, I have to look and see if there's some Chicago guys who were influenced by Michael Jordan. Same with Allen Iverson in Philly. You're going to probably see that kind of influence around. And in this respect, it's the same way with, oh my God, I'm blanking. What were we just talking about?
Talking about Millsap in Denver?
And Moutier. Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
So the idea behind Moutier being a point guard, when maybe he really isn't the point guard, and it kind of reminds me of like Russell Westbrook, where he's figured it out. He's running a team. He's a point guard. He's won the MVP. But I still never understood how he came out of college as a point guard. And suddenly the narrative was he was going to be a point guard, having never played it at all, hardly at UCLA behind Darren Collison, and just decided he was going to be a point guard. And they were like, okay, you are going to be a point guard. That's an interesting thing where a couple of different players I've seen, it probably isn't their best position, yet there's sitting there trying to hammer that circle into a square.
I've argued this about Michael Carter Williams. Like his career, his NBA career is being ruined by people trying to pigeonhole him as a lead ball handler. It's just not what he is.
Right.
I think he's better suited as a wing, who can cut, play off the ball, and bring some defense. The problem is he's not playing any defense either. So, but I think that the expectations of a guy who is a point guard, it's completely different than expectations of a guy who, like I just said, is playing off the ball. And I think that the difference is important. It's a little bit of an easier job, and some people aren't suited for this sort of pressure. And there's the thing, he won Rookie of the Year, but that was about the pace that they played at, and the league hadn't quite caught up. Like the smart people were ahead of the time on understanding pace and the effect it has on statistics. This is sort of like Billy Beane with Moneyball and closers. This idea that you had this stat was kind of empty, the save, and he would drive up closers' trade value by putting him in situations to get the save. And then he would trade him away for huge assets, and this is what Hinkie did with Michael Carter Williams. Yeah. And I mean, good for Hinkie, but man, it's been rough to watch a guy like Michael Carter Williams and who could be a decent player, a rotation player, and the expectations from that rookie year have kind of ruined him.
And he was young, and he's definitely one of those guys that simply, I don't think you should be competing in the NBA unless you look like you are 20 years old. And he came in the league looking like he was 16, right? And then even the next year, it looked like he was 17 and a half. Only now does he start looking like he's at the right age. Like Austin Rivers was like that. Sean Livingston, even going way back in the day. These guys were probably just too young. And even though Michael Carter Williams had some success in the high pace offense, you can see right now that it's had an effect on him, I think, psychologically. I feel like his confidence level, he just doesn't look like he believes. And it's tough because you're going to get eaten alive. And they're going to, even if they don't turn the ball over, they knock the ball away. His handle doesn't look as smooth as it should be for a professional guard. And certainly shooting is not there, which is so much to do with confidence. Although he never had a great shot as it is, but either way, it's interesting. We keep seeing this sort of a pattern here with certain types of players, and you would hope that at some point somebody could figure it out and get better advice to these players and get better training and help them out so that we don't keep having the same kind of story over and over.
I would just like to point out this is probably the most you will hear about Michael Carter Williams on any free agency podcast.
Hey.
Which means that we should probably move on.
Right. What do we win?
But yeah. So let's see. I'll just kind of roll through some, and you give me your quick, just 2 second. Some of these are no brainers, right? Steph Curry going back to the Warriors on a 5-year, $201 million supermax, no brainer. I agree with LeBron. Steph Curry should have gotten a $400 million contract. Are you there?
LeBron
Same
said?
page. LeBron said that, and this is the kind of stuff that I like. I applaud LeBron for. I applaud him for a lot, but that's definitely one of the things is that LeBron gets it. However he acts towards someone on the basketball court, he has a lot of respect for Steph Curry off the court, and so that kind of stuff matters. Kyle Lowry going back to the Raptors, 3 years, $100 million. I love this deal for the Raptors. Also, while we're there, we'll talk about Serge Ibaka because he's also back on a 3-year deal. Let's see, his is for 3 years, $65 million. So a lot less than the max that they thought, everyone thought they were going to have to sign him to. I like these deals for a couple of reasons. First of all, they're both short. They're 3-year deals. They didn't lock them in. They didn't lock Lowry into a 5-year deal. I'm assuming the last year on both of these deals are player options, which both of these guys are liable to take. But I think you can move these deals. They're short and they line up with DeMar DeRozan, which means if you wanted to launch into rebuild mode, it's not too far off. It'd be pretty easy to get there. I also am of the opinion that they probably are shopping DeMar DeRozan right now after signing those deals, and they would probably roll out Norm Powell as a starter. Don't quote me on that, but this is just that's my gut feeling. How do you feel about bringing back the gang?
I was kind of surprised by Kyle Lowry only signed a 3-year deal. It felt like he could have gotten a 4-year deal from another team in a different situation. You want to tell me something?
So this is going to a more interesting, bigger point. Now, Drew Holiday re-signed with the Pelicans 5 years, $125. Okay. Now, but that was never a realistic free agency destination for anyone. And they had to overpay for Drew Holiday. If Drew Holiday had walked, they would have only had $13 million to play with. Now, Drew Holiday is a good point guard, but because of their cap situation, they needed to bring him back. They weren't going to improve that position. Now, unless you were going to go ahead and do a teardown, which is they've only got 2 years of Anthony Davis left.
He's gone. It's over.
Yeah, he's probably gone.
You might as well look at it like he's gone because the second they signed the contract for Drew Holiday, I'm telling you, it's the second they're going. He's leaving because they're not going to win as much as he's going to need them to win.
Yeah, but so I also think that they should have moved Boogie, but that's neither here nor there.
Well, and they might do that.
That's right. Patty Mills re-signed in San Antonio, 4 years, $50 million, and Jeff Teague signed in Minnesota, 3 years, $57 million. So the market for point guards got tight, and George Hill is still feeling the pressure right now, probably wishing he had done the renegotiation and extension with Utah when they offered it to him last fall. So Kyle Lowry getting $33 million a year that's a win for him because he probably wasn't going to get that on the open market.
Okay, that's interesting.
The money wasn't there.
Okay, but here's the thing then, because he could have gotten 4 years. Oh, so let's just say he got the same. Well, so you don't think he would have gotten $33 million from anybody else?
No, let's say he got 4 years, 25. I think that. I mean, right. JJ Redick signed with Philly for 23.
Okay. Because here's the thing, it's like, I know they have these careers are short-lived. You never know what's going to happen. You need to be able to do the best thing for your families and for your bank accounts. But it doesn't necessarily feel like this is going to be the recipe to win anything beyond what they've done every year. They've already hit their ceiling. So I guess it's nice to see another year having Serge Ibaka back, which is really a good sign for them because when's the last time the Raptors were able to, you can look at it as signing a free agent, right? I know he was there for a little while, but they basically, he liked it enough, I suppose.
And now they get the full year. And I mean, I think that they wind up trying to move Valanciunas. I mean, they've been taking calls on Valanciunas for a year. So, but if they can move Valanciunas, play Ibaka at the 5 like they should, I think they'll be a better team. But like you said, we know the ceiling. But their ceiling is actually, I mean, it's not like they're the 8th seed. Their ceiling is Eastern Conference. They were in the Eastern Conference Finals 2 years ago. If everyone's healthy, they play Cleveland pretty tough. And think about it. If LeBron gets hurt, they have a really good shot at making it to the finals. And I think that there's something to be said for rolling back out there because it's not like they were bad. We do know what their ceiling is, and they're not going to get past LeBron. But what if LeBron gets hurt? I mean, he is 32 years old. He's got a lot of miles. And if you're in the wings, I think that's a good place to be. Yeah. Now, you don't want to get leapfrogged, though.
I don't know. The solution for the Raptors is they should trade DeMar DeRozan and they should fire Dwayne Casey. And I think that would those two things would and then let Powell start. And I'm telling you, get some good return from DeRozan. And I think that would do it. They would be because I think Cleveland is vulnerable without question right now. And I think that would be something that could vault them if they get the right player or players for DeRozan. That's what they're missing. That to me seems like a really easy solution.
Yeah, I mean, again, though, but I wonder what the market for DeRozan's like. I was thinking about this earlier today, and again, DeRozan's a good player. He gets you 25 points a night. He doesn't fit on every team. right? It is an interesting fit, and so I'm not sure what the market is for him. There's a lot of teams. Phoenix comes to mind, but Phoenix has decided they're going young. They're gonna double down on the rebuild. They're a year late on this, but better late than never. Does LA have any interest in DeMar DeRozan right now? I don't think so, because I think that they're hoping to get Russell Westbrook and Paul George. Now, if Russell Westbrook re-ups this week, then maybe they start calling around about DeRozan, but I don't know. There just aren't a lot of really good fits for DeRozan, and so the Raptors are kind of in a weird spot where they're stuck with this good player who's making a lot of money. I mean, he's a good player, so let's not forget that. And I don't want to be considered a Raptors hater.
Right. I just feel like as presently constructed with the coach and the players they have and who's going to get the most shots, I think we've seen their ceiling. And you're right, there's no shame in being that good, which is, a great shot at getting the Eastern Conference Finals every year. And that said, the Eastern Conference is really going to be reeling. I had tweeted almost in jest yesterday when somebody asked me if LeBron goes to LA, which is not out of the realm of possibility, right? If he goes to LA, now you're talking about the best 14 players in the NBA are all in the West. Like, I jokingly said that Adam Silver, if they had enough time, would have to reorganize the conferences and get rid of them and have them just be 1 through 30.
I wish that they would just have the competition committee convene this summer, which they will, and just go ahead and say, you know what, we want to get rid of conferences. Because, it's going to be a mess. And people have talked about the Warriors upsetting the competitive balance of the league. Really, I think conferences are upsetting the competitive balance of the league, because you've got a lot of good teams that get held out of the playoffs because they don't play in the weaker East. And, if you really want to take a novel approach to fixing some of the problems with the league, I think that's the way to go. And we all think that this is a no-brainer. So it's just time for the league to catch up and go that way. The other thing is, what if LeBron leaves next summer and doesn't go to the West? Like, what if he goes back to Miami? That's what I would. If I was LeBron and I was going to leave Cleveland, I would maybe just go to Miami. First of all, great city, right? You've got history there. You probably wouldn't be hard to attract free agents because, again, great city. And you wouldn't have to deal with the 13 murderers in the West. I think that that kind of stuff should come into play. Someone asked me earlier how I felt about Hayward. Like, where do I think he's leaning? Well, Utah got worse because they're losing George Hill. The Rubio trade kind of cemented that. I would be looking at Boston or Miami. It would be between those two teams just to get away from all those murderers' rows over there.
And it's funny because I'm trying to think of, the biggest, one of the big drawing parts of Miami is the weather, and it's the only East Coast Eastern Conference team, really, right? I guess Charlotte
Orlando.
is nice. Orlando.
Charlotte still has a winter. But Orlando, I don't know, man. Give me Miami.
Atlanta is not bad, but I think it gets a little bit chilly in the winter, I think, there, right?
It does. Yeah.
So it's
give me Miami.
Yeah, it's weird in that sense, and hell, Minnesota shouldn't even be in the West either. They should be in the East. And that would be a really interesting thing. If they were in the East where they should be, that would give them a chance to, make the playoffs, develop, those young players quicker. Because remember that playing in the playoffs, I think, is one of the biggest developing things that teams could go through when they're young, the young team. And without that opportunity, it holds that development back. It's really frustrating to some of those teams. At least, thank God, at least Milwaukee made it this year, because that was a team that missed out, I think, the year before, and that just delayed a lot of stuff.
Right. So back to the free agents. Let's talk about Golden State briefly. Durant's gonna re-sign with the non-Bird extension, which allows them to give him a 120% raise. I think it winds up being like 1.7 million less than his max. So this is a no-brainer for him because it also allows them to keep guys around. They bring back Sean Livingston on a 3-year, $24 million deal. Only $2 million of that is guaranteed in the last year of the deal. A great signing for Golden State. They're bringing back Andre Iguodala, 3 years, $15 million. Really great for Andre Iguodala, who used the Kings to kind of drive up the asking price. Thought it was fantastic. Looks like the Warriors have basically just kept the status quo. We don't know about Ian Clark yet. I'm assuming, he's going to be gone. Yeah. Apparently the Bulls have some interest. They re-signed David West for a year, so he's going to play his last season with them. What do you think? What do you think Golden State? Who do you think they should be looking at as far as like the minimum deal? Obviously, we're both on board with bringing in Swaggy.
Yeah.
On the
I think
mid-level.
it's gonna be him. I think that they like him. I think that he's gonna like. Why wouldn't you want to go there? And you know what? It's interesting. He'll be really good there. I feel like. Now I don't think he plays that much. I mean, I kind of want to check Ian Clark's minutes because he'll probably kind of get some version of those minutes in theory. But then again, McCaw is going to take a lot more minutes, I would imagine. So in reality, he probably doesn't play that position. Doesn't even play that much. I kind of want him to get Ben McLemore because I thought that he would be a fantastic fit, and I don't think that he has that much value in the league right now as a free agent. So it's almost like, would he make more than any kind of mid-level exception?
No, I think they could probably bring him in on a minimum. I mean,
yeah.
he's almost at the point where you could treat him like a reclamation project, which is tough to say about a guy that's only been in the league 4 years. Like he's 23 years old, Yeah. It's a little kind of tough. But I think that there will be a market for him, but I don't know what it is. I mean, I haven't even heard anything about him yet, like as far as teams reaching out to talk to him. But he'll hook up with a team because a lot of people are going to say, they're not going to let the Kings stink kind of stay on him.
I hope not,
But I expect McCaw to pick up a lot of those Ian Clark minutes. So, I mean, if Nick Young comes, I mean, I think that during the regular season we'll probably see him play like in that 6 to 9 minutes a game, and then he probably won't play in the playoffs or anything like that. So let's see. How do you feel about JJ Redick? JJ Redick to the Sixers for $23 million
for 1 year, right? It's weird. It doesn't
I think
make
he listens
sense
to our
me.
podcast.
What's that?
I said I think he listens to our podcast because I've been saying, for Philly to throw a big short-term offer at him because he'd be great. And for him, it's a nice payday for 1 year, and then he gets to go back out in free agency when teams should have more money. Like that was the other thing. The money crunch was real this year.
Yeah, he's not going to start, right?
Oh yeah, he'll be starting for sure at the 2. Yeah.
All right, so then they're not going to do. All right, so I guess you can still have Simmons and Fultz sort of. You know what I mean? I don't understand. I guess
I'm assuming it'll be Fultz, Redick, Covington, Simmons, and Embiid.
Yeah. Okay. That works for me. I mean, they'll certainly. Redick is one of those guys. Yeah, like you say, like in the locker room, he'll be great for them. And he's still a great knockdown shooter. He won't have to do much playmaking, which he got into trouble with a little bit in LA when certain guys were injured, and he had to sort of be that second or third ball handling guy, which is not his thing at all. So, yeah, no, I mean, listen, he'll be a really good acquisition for them. I don't know what the long game here is. I mean, what were you thinking? He's going to go there, get paid a little bit, have some fun with these young guys, and then let some veteran team pick him up so he can win again, or is it?
Maybe. I mean, I think that in the short term, getting that $23 million in 1 year, I think that's a good deal for him.
Well, by the way, where are they then? Let's just pretend they're all healthy, which I much rather prefer to look at it that way. If they're all healthy, that's a fourth seed, right?
I don't know about that. I mean, we have to see how it all fits on the court. I mean, Simmons has yet to play a game. Fultz has yet to play a game. Embiid played 31 games last year. We need to see him be healthy. I think that their ceiling is certainly high. If everything goes according to plan, it's high. But I think it's hard to say a team that young is going to be a top 4 seed. I think it's really difficult.
Again, I choose to believe that they'll just simply be healthy. And all I can tell you is that when Embiid played in those, it was only 31 games, really?
Yeah, 31 games.
It seems more. When he played, he was so dominant, and he opened up so much for everybody on both ends of the floor that if you get 70-some games out of him, I don't see how you win. You should win 40 if he plays 70.
Right, I'm with you. But again, I don't think that's
not.
I don't think they're
anyway.
A top 4 seed.
Right.
But I'm all for it. Like I'm really rooting hard for that team. I want them to do well. I think it's great. Like the league is great when we get young teams that overachieve. I think it's fantastic. Like the Thunder making the finals in 2012. I thought that was really good for the league. And I'd love to see the Sixers get into the playoffs. I think it'd be fantastic for the league.
Yeah. Well, and if we're talking about young teams and who's going to play in the backcourt, we didn't mention Jeff Teague in Minnesota, right? After we have Taj getting back there, did we? I don't think we did.
Yeah, we did. We talked about how he can play off the ball. or with the ball.
Okay, one sentence. Okay, because I don't think I said anything, but either way, okay.
I don't like it as much as if they would have gotten George Hill, but
I agree. I feel like it's. I mean, I think Jeff Teague. We've seen his best days. I think we've seen his ceiling, and you know what? He's fine, but it just didn't. It didn't sort of raise the level of competition for me enough where I feel like that's going to get him closer where they want to go.
I've got one for you. I've got a big one. Okay, so when the Clippers made the Chris Paul trade, you and we talked about this, and we were like, well, now what? Now what do the Clippers do? Do they tear it down, or do they re-up with Blake and try to build around Blake? And so they are re-signing him to a 5-year, $173 million deal. So I guess we know what they intend to do. I like Pat Beverly as the guard, as the kind of one there. I think that putting the ball in Blake's hands more is good for him and should be good for that team, as using him as a playmaker or whatever. It's still a step down from Chris Paul being that guy, but I don't think it's bad. We might get some 4 or 5 pick and roll. Blake's 3-point shot was looking pretty good toward the end of last year. If he can stay healthy, I think that there's going to be a drop-off for sure. They're not a top 5 team in the West. I think they're still a playoff team. I don't know. Am I wrong? I mean, I think they're 7 or 8 seed, but what do you think?
Yeah, no, they're a playoff team, I think, for sure. I mean, they have Patrick Beverly is good. Now, he's not like the traditional like sort of lead guard. So that right. So Blake is going to probably end up doing a lot of that, which I like. It's probably when I'm most happy with his game, when he's sort of not posting up and he's doing some elbow stuff and doing dribble handoffs and getting people involved, and then using his gravity rolling to the rim and that stuff. You know, then you have DeAndre Jordan, who I guess is staying. Right, they're not going to move him. I mean, so you have you have a lot of you have talent, and then they got Lou. And that's going to be, so they did well, and I thought it was very nice of Chris Paul to like sort of allow them to do that, right? Like I think he could have just kind of, well, maybe you can give me a little more insight into how the structure worked. Maybe they needed to do it for Houston's standpoint as well, but it felt kind of nice to me that Chris Paul said, you know what, I ain't going to come back. I'm going to Houston. If you want, we can do this whole trade thing, and you can get something back.
Right. It was definitely that's definitely what it was. It was Chris Paul not wanting to leave scorched earth behind him. He opts into the deal, allows them to make the trade. I mean, now Houston could have cleared the space with no problem. They could have done similar deals. Now, not to just sound like this is all altruism on Chris Paul's part, because he also now they will have his bird rights. Houston will. He'll be able to sign that 5-year deal next summer. They'll be able to exceed the cap to sign him to it. So it wasn't all altruistic, but it wasn't, he didn't just bail and leave them with nothing, leave the cupboard bare. So, it's a win-win situation. I think Houston probably will wind up re-signing him to a 5-year deal. I wouldn't necessarily want to pay the last 2 years of that deal. But, that's the kind of economics of the league, and that's most likely what will happen.
Absolutely. I agree. Whoa, and my camera just went haywire here. I'm going to fix that in a second while we talk. So what's up next then for them, or for who we're going to talk about?
Let's see. I mean, we kind of covered all of the big ones. I mean, Joe Ingles going back to Utah. I thought that's a great signing for Utah. I mean, Joe Ingles was in demand. Nene coming back to the Rockets. This is funny. So he had agreed to a 4-year, $15 million deal, but because his birthday is 12 days too early, he actually falls under the over 38 rule, so he can't sign that contract. So they had to alter the agreement. They switched it from 4 years, 15 to 3 years, $11 million. Literally 12 days cost him $4 million, which is just, it's.
How old do you have to be then to get that?
So you can't sign a contract that carries you past 38. And basically, he's 35. And
Wait,
so
what do you? I don't understand. You mean once you turn 38, you can only do like 1-year deals, or what?
Yeah.
Why? Who did that? Who was in charge of that?
It's in the new CBA. Well, it was 36, and then they changed it to 38.
Oh,
so they bumped the age up. This is the using the CBA to protect these billionaire owners, man, from themselves.
Wow.
Think about the time when guys were getting 7-year deals. I mean, this is what that is all about. So it's really kind of funny that this happened, because I mean, think about the Rockets and how on top of the CBA and the salary cap they are, and they didn't even realize it until they were trying to do this deal with the league. And then, they were doing their due diligence on the contract, and they realized, no, he misses that cutoff by 12 days. No. No, the Rockets.
You just talking about for Ingles?
I'm talking about Nene. The Nene signing. Yeah,
I'm sorry. Yeah. We were talking about Ingles, though.
Yeah, I just said it was a good signing.
Okay, never mind.
I just moved on really quickly.
Because Ingles is not 35.
No. There wasn't much to say about Ingles because he's going back to Utah.
Well, and there's a lot to say about the Ingles signing.
Well, he's a good player.
Well, no, but that too. But that it basically guarantees that Hayward comes back to Utah, doesn't it?
Oh no.
Yeah, they're like they're best buds. They do commercials together.
Yeah, I mean, apparently George Hill and Hayward are really good buddies. I don't think Ingles coming back makes Hayward come back. I just don't. I don't think the two are connected. I'll say this. I don't know who Hayward's representatives are, but not a peep has come out about his intentions. There has been no leak whatsoever. I don't know anything. He met today with Boston, met yesterday with Miami. Tomorrow in San Diego, he'll be meeting with the Jazz, and apparently he's going to ruin the 4th of July for all of us because that's about when he's going to make his decision. So yeah, kudos to them for keeping their trap shut. But I don't think that the Ingles coming back is going to mean that he's coming back.
Yeah, you heard it here first, folks. I'm breaking that news that Hayward's going back to Utah.
There you go. There we go.
Now that said, they brought him over to Fenway today. We had somebody who was in a random hotel room who could see over the into the stadium, and they could see the video that they were playing for Hayward to recruit him. Which is also funny because someone's like, Coach, they already have Rudy Gay's locker all set up in the OKC. And I kind of had to say, well, yeah, it's kind of like what they probably do for every free agent. They make up a fake placard. They put in they can show them this is going to be your locker right next to us. Like, so people were kind of getting probably a little bit too excited about that, their prospects. Although it does feel like Rudy Gay probably should just go to OKC. That should work as long as they have the money that he's happy with.
Yeah, and there was a rumor there that if Iguodala was leaving, that the Warriors would be interested. I mean, I don't think he's as good of a fit on the Warriors as he would be in OKC. And in OKC, he probably gets some touches. I mean, he definitely would get some open shots. So they better hope they get him because they really need someone of that ilk if he's going to be healthy. I mean, again, he's what, 30?
Oh,
and he's coming off. Yeah, I know. Here I go again. I just need to have the age list. He coming off the Achilles injury though.
Yeah,
he's 30 years old.
It's a problem, and he already had. He didn't look the same as he had earlier in his career as it was anyway, fit or whatever the reason being. But yeah, he's 30. Just about 31 years old.
Yeah, he'll be 31 by the start of next season.
Yeah, and but either way, it's like it kind of depends on what OKC really wants to do because. If they want to keep Russ, then they have to get someone. Yeah, but Rudy Gay is probably not going to be it no matter what. So I don't know. I guess I'd be surprised. The real question is how well can they do with this Paul George? And like we talked about their starting five, it just doesn't feel like they're going to be any better than last year. Maybe a little bit. And so if that's the case. It sounds like Russ probably wouldn't want to stay either way, but that's also kind of sad because they did these moves and they're really trying to make it happen, and then they don't quite bump up. Who knows?
Right. Hopefully we'll know, this week. I mean, he's either going to sign this extension or he's going to get dealt, and that's where I'm at. I mean, it really there's no way that OKC can just let him walk. And I feel the same way about Paul George. Now, with that being said, this is another reason why this was such a great trade by Presti. If he's going to lose both of these guys, they are better trade chips than what he sent out to get Paul George. So he stands to benefit quite a bit. I mean, is it crazy to think that he could work out a deal with the Lakers for Paul George and Russell Westbrook and not get Lonzo, Brandon Ingram? You know what I mean? That's a pretty good deal on his part if he were to work something like that out. And I have no doubt that the Lakers would be open to something along those lines because they instantly would become, somewhat competitive. So
yeah, so you have to look at the winning percentage of OKC for the first 2 months of the season because if it looks clear that they're going to be, if they're not going to crack the top 5 or 6, then yeah, I have to imagine they're going to feel that they need to pull the trigger on a Russ trade. And that wouldn't be a bad thing for them. They could reload and get a lot of stuff for him. and Paul George. Yeah, so that would be an interesting thing. Like, is that what you're saying? It'd be a package to the Lakers?
Well, I'm just totally speculating here that if Russ doesn't re-sign the DVPE here, if he doesn't extend, then is there a possibility that they could coax the Lakers into doing something like trading Lonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram? I mean, that's like ideal scenario for OKC if they're going to lose Russ and Paul George. Paul George is not staying if Russ doesn't stay.
Yeah, so. I don't see how Russ ever fits in with what Luke Walton likes to run on offense, and that would be a problem as well. So that might be a thing that they're like, yeah, maybe we wouldn't want to even do that ultimately.
I don't think so.
Paul George, but not Russ. What?
I don't know about that. I think the Lakers would jump at the chance to get those two guys. I just think they would. I mean, look, most teams would, and most teams should.
Let's find out how well Lonzo Ball does. So I think that's also a big key. If he takes the world by storm and he's like Magic Johnson out there, then they don't need him, right? They wouldn't get him. Or guess what? They finally get Russ to play the right position and he's off ball, and then they have something. But again, it goes back to my argument about how these narratives take hold about what position these guys think they should be playing, and the team's gonna let them do it. And here we are. It's a fascinating discussion.
Right.
Fantastic discussion, Dave. This will be outdated by tomorrow, but we'll see what happens. But at any rate, hopefully nothing will happen tonight, and then by tomorrow this will be fresh. So thanks for coming on. We'll have to check in again, and we'll do emergency periscopes and YouTubes as we need this week. Hopefully it's not going to be too crazy around the 4th of July, but we'll never know. So Dave, thanks. Any other thing you want to leave us with before we go?
No, just everyone have a nice Independence Day. Be safe. Don't do anything stupid like play with fireworks.
Right. Well, yeah, my neighborhood, they've been playing with fireworks for the last month. So anyhow, all right. Well, anyway, thanks you, Dave, for coming in. Thank you guys for all joining us. And don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You win? You win, Dave?
Yes, I am.